3,000? For the sake of everybody in the band, act like you got some sense.
1, 2, 3, Andre Lauren Benjamin was born May 27, 1975 in Atlanta, Georgia. Surprisingly, although he was an only child, his parents thought he was a very unusual baby. For starters, he wasn't a crying baby. He was more of a hungry baby. Often dull, as his father would put it, toys weren't really his thing. In fact, you just put him on the blanket, give him some newspaper, and he just crampled it for hours on end. He just loved that sound.
He was a little dog, he really was. And you can tell that it was something about that young boy.
After Andre was born, Lawrence moved in together with Sharon to an apartment to try and make things work for the sake of Andre. They never officially married, but things didn't go smoothly as planned. His father would often sleep around with other women, and there's even a time when he brought one to the apartment.
I admit it. I mean, I was fooling around with another woman. Well, at that time, I was just wild. We do stupid things when we're young.
This was the final straw for Sharon, and she decided to move out. Without a sustaining job, she and Andre would move around a lot because they couldn't afford rent. But luckily, Andre was always prepared and understanding of the situation, even for his age. They settled down in an apartment complex across from Bowen Homes, which is like the epitome of projects there in Atlanta, Georgia. Poverty was high there, making crime rate also significantly high in the area. Not wanting that life for her son, it only made sense to Sharon to bus Andre to the part of town where he could be exposed to better. See, during the 80s, the Atlanta public school system participated in the minority to majority program to integrate the schools racially. So Andre found himself at Sarah Smith School and Sutton Middle School, which were in a predominantly white neighborhood. This was a culture shock to him from the two opposing lifestyles he had witnessed. When Andre was 13, he developed a passion for fashion and would often want brand clothes. Unfortunately, his mother couldn't afford them, and so he ingeniously started branding his own clothes. This clearly opened his mind to a new way of thought for the better, but this wouldn't last long. As he was transitioning from middle school to high school, he started becoming rebellious. He was always the one to see what's behind that door, as his brother would put it. He started to live that life that he was bused to avoid. This went on for a while, affecting even his grades at school, and eventually Sharon had enough. Although she didn't want to, she let his father, Lawrence, take him in. Andre didn't quite change. He continued to call the shots, stayed out late, went to clubs and all that. His passion for music, which started by exposure to the different lifestyles in music as a kid, intensified too. He would eat, sleep, and live rap. This path led him to Tri-Cities High School, where he met his match, Antoine Patton, aka Big Boi. Antoine was into all types of music as well as friends. But funnily, Antoine and Andre didn't like each other at first. They were rival MCs who battled each other in the cafeteria. This went on for a while, and without realizing it, they had become Tri-Cities elite rappers. They formed a duo called 2 Shades Deep, going by the monikers Black Dog and Black Wolf. They needed exposure, and so they performed anywhere as long as they had an audience. In their senior year, they met a guy named Rico, who was the producer of Organized Noisy Productions. This organization had its reputation of hip-hop in Atlanta, and they were looking for young artists to freshen their troupe, so Andre and Antoine fit right in. They spent all their time in the studio, which they called the Dungeon.
Ain't no one better, and when I'm on the microphone, you best to wear your sweater, cause I make
They didn't want to leave. It was only a matter of time before one of them blew up, so they thought. They even skipped school multiple times to work on their songs. Andre wouldn't let anything get between him and his music, and eventually he dropped out. Now there's a time he was randomly looking at the dictionary and found the name that best describes them. When they took up the name, that's when Antoine changed his name to Big Boi and Andre to Big Dre. For a start, Rico was trying to get them a show with L.A. Reid, who was a big name in the industry at the time. He was the president of LaFace Records and worked with big artists like Usher, TCL, Pink, and many others. Although LaFace Records was an R&B label, it was their only shot to blow up. Organized Noise, on the other hand, though Outkast fit in just fine, wasn't a record label and had no major prospects of going big. It was more of a medium rather than a destination. But till then, Outkast, Organized Noise, and Schoolmates Goody Mob formed the nucleus of the Dungeon Family organization. Rico finally got them in. It was as simple as walking into L.A. Reid's office and performing for him. L.A. Reid was a fan, but wasn't convinced they would go big. They needed more guidance. Besides, they hadn't even graduated from high school. But this was understandable, as LaFace Records had never dealt with hip-hop artists before. Dre and Antoine were not demotivated by the skepticism they were dealt with. In fact, they cultivated a military mindset to gain favor. They would spend all their time in the dungeon. They would wake up early in the morning and go for runs while reciting rhymes, so that when they perform on stage, they don't get out of breath. Anything they could think of, they tried it. Organized Noise worked more and more with LaFace any chance they got to make them artists. And so, Reed called them in for an audition. The show went great, but there were areas they could improve on, stage presence, delivery, and so on. But luckily,
Second audition was more full-blown. People there, everybody was loving them.
They were really being themselves. It blew LA away because he was like, okay, now that's something. Okay, now I get it.
and so in 1992, Outkast signed to LA and Babyface imprint LaFace Records. They made their first appearance on the remix of labelmate TLC's What About Your Friends? During the holiday season of 1993, they released their first single, Players Ball. The song's funky style, much of it accomplished with live instrumentation, was a hit with audiences. It also topped the R&B chart for a whooping 6 weeks. At the time, rap was all East Coast, West Coast, and really nothing in between. That was the birth of Southern hip-hop. They took Atlanta almost immediately. They got a lot of respect, and basically, there was no way you couldn't hear Outkast. Their debut album, Southernplayalistic, I'm pretty sure I have butchered that, but it was released on April 26, 1994. This initial effort is credited with laying the foundation for Southern hip-hop and is considered a classic by many. However, every track on that album was produced by Organized Noise and featured other members of the Dungeon family. Follow-up singles included the title track and Get Up, Get Out, a politically charged collaboration with Goody Mob. On this early material, both Big Boi and Dre contrast lyrical content reflecting the lifestyles of pimps and gangsters with politically conscious material commenting on the status of African Americans in the South. Outkast won Best New Rap Group at the Source Awards in 1995. Within the context of the East Coast-West Coast feud, Andre came up on stage followed by boos from the crowd and said, "But it's like this though, I'm tired of them closed-minded folks. It's like we got a demo tape, but don't nobody want to hear it. But it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I gotta say." That went on to make a bunch of headlines. It brought more attention to Outkast. That's when it changed. That was the first time when people began to take Southern rap seriously. In the same year, the group contributed Benz or a Beamer to the popular New Jersey Drive soundtrack. The double platinum album, Atelier, was released on August 27, 1996. The album exhibited a notably more laid-back, spacey production sound, taking influence from dub and reggae.
Once upon a time, not long ago, when the player from the point didn't have no
On Atelier, Big Boi and now Andre 3000 abandoned the hard-partying playa characters of their debut album in favor of more spacey, futuristic personas, and produced many of the songs on their own for the first time. Their tracks have an outer space feeling to them, a feeling that ironically has warmed the community right up to them. Critics praised the group's maturing musical style on the record, which debuted at number 2 on the US R&B hip-hop chart, selling nearly 350,000 copies in its first 2 weeks of release. ATLiens further solidified Outkast as the flagship representatives of the first-generation Dungeon family and the Southern hip-hop movement. Outkast's third album, Aquemini, also did very well. It was also certified double platinum and reached the number 2 position on the Billboard 200 album chart in the United States. Its title was a combination of the zodiac signs of Big Boi, an Aquarius, and Andre, a Gemini. In late 2000, originally titled Sandbox, the pair's fourth album, Stankonia, was released. The album was seen as a change in the group's musical style, as it had a more commercial and mainstream appeal compared to their previous 3 albums, which were darker, both tonally and thematically. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 in the US and would eventually be certified quadruple platinum. Outkast then spent 2 years working on their 5th effort before releasing a double album, Speakerboxx/The Love Below, on September 23, 2003. It is essentially 2 solo albums, one by each member, packaged as a single release under the Outkast banner. The 2 members also appear and co-produce on each other's discs for a few songs apiece. Big Boi's Speakerboxx Sex is largely a funk and dirty South blended party record. Andre 3000's The Love Below features only brief instances of hip-hop, presenting instead elements found in funk, jazz, rock, electronic music, and R&B. Now what's interesting was the album became their biggest success. The album sold over 5 million copies, and as double album sales count double for RIAA. It was later certified diamond for over 10 million units sold. Members also began working on a joint film, Idlewild, directed by Outkast music video director Brian Barber. Idlewild, a Prohibition-era musical film set to a blues-influenced hip-hop soundtrack, was released on August 25, 2006 by Universal Pictures. However, in an interview for Billboard, Big Boi stated, "This is an Outkast album. It isn't like a soundtrack where we go get this person or that person." The album debuted at number 2 on the US Billboard 200 chart, with first-week sales of 196,000 copies. This was a start to the fate of Outkast in the music scene, as in 2007, Outkast went on hiatus. 3 years later, Big Boi released the solo album, Sir Lucius Left Foot, the son of Chico Dusty, to general acclaim, and he subsequently recorded Vicious Lies and Dangerous Rumors, 2012, and Boomiverse, 2017. Andre 3000, meanwhile, confined himself to producing and recording with other artists. Outkast reunited in 2014 and appeared at festivals during most of the year, but the tour did not lead to further recordings or performances. The group reissued Stankonia, which featured previously unreleased material, to commemorate the album's 20th anniversary in 2020. Andre would later release his solo album Blue Sun in 2023, but that would be like a farewell album. Now, if you are still on why that hiatus was necessary, even though they were selling bank at the time, well, for both, it had to do with family challenges. Now, for this video, we'll take a look into Dre's family, his wives, kids, and all that, but saving Big Boi journey and family for a separate video. Andre 3000 is a family man. His son, 7 Sirius Benjamin, was born in 1997, the child of Andre 3000 and the acclaimed musician Erykah Badu. Despite the end of Andre and Erykah's relationship in 1999, they maintained a strong friendship and co-parenting relationship to ensure that their son had a peaceful and fulfilling upbringing. Even as 7, who shares an uncanny resemblance with his father, pursued higher education, Andre and Erykah continued to support him. 7, now 22 years old, is known for his physical similarities, mannerisms, fashion sense, and voice, which often draw comparisons to his famous father. He's also academically inclined, having received acceptance letters from 4 universities in 2016, and ultimately choosing to pursue a major in psychology, arts, and science. Currently, he is in college and actively involved in homeschooling his younger sister, Mars, while also supporting his mother, Erykah Badu. It's heartwarming to see Andre 3000 and Erykah Badu's dedication to co-parenting and supporting their talented son, 7 Sirius Benjamin. Well, there you go. Andre 3000 the Great. Remember, if you found the content informative, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.